All right.
Welcome, everyone. This is Jordan with Food Bevy, the online community of food and beverage founders. And today I have the honor of talking with Lev Berlin from Recipal. So Lev, as we were just kind of talking, I was mentioning how everyone in the emerging food and beverage space knows about Recipal, but so few people, have gotten the chance to talk with you. And so I'd love for you to tell a little bit about your journey and starting Recipal and how it got started. For those that don't know, Recipal is an amazingly simple tool for food and beverage businesses to create their ingredient and nutrition labels and statements. But then there's also costing tools and inventory management tools within there as well. And we'll get into that a little bit. So Lev, would love for you just to give an intro to yourself and how you got started on this journey.
Thanks, Jordan. Really great for you to have me here, and nice to meet you and chat a little bit and get in touch with your guys' communities. Seeing what you guys are doing is really, really great. But yeah, my story is super random, in my opinion. I was helping friends start a beef jerky company on the side of having a management consulting job. There were 10 of us friends working kind of nights and weekends, getting this, really just making jerky for fun, and just happened to turn into a little business. And I was the person tasked with doing the nutrition labeling, and it was very intimidating. I was worried we were going to have to send our dozens of flavors to a lab and spend all the money we had to get those labels and nutrition analysis done. Then I realized you could do this thing called database analysis, which is just using software to basically do the math for you. And unfortunately, at the time, the options were still not that great. They're really expensive, and it was kind of competitive with a lab analysis as opposed to software. So kind of got started working on the side on this Recipal business, like you described pretty accurately. It's just simple software tools for food businesses. So now it does labeling, there's a little costing tool, and it does kind of nascent inventory management module as well. And yeah, it's definitely, we try to keep things simple, but slowly growing kind of more complicated over time and covering kind of more people's needs. And but the idea is to keep it simple, kind of let you get in and get out and back to running and growing your actual business as opposed to spending your time in Recipal.
No, I think that was a huge insight, and I think a problem that people experience, but no one really solved. A lot of people who probably experienced it were like, similar to you, they were like starting in the food space, and they didn't have like a tech mindset to necessarily like go in and develop the software from it. But you're right, and even now, there's still this sense of like the do-it-yourself mentality is to like use the FDA's like huge database of ingredients and like manually compute for the statement and information for your products, or you go to a lab where they do a full spectrum analysis and give you the nutrition labels that way. And so your solution is super elegant and simple, and is used by as far as I can tell, hundreds or thousands of food brands along the way.
Yeah, it's always fun seeing or trying to decipher who on the store shelf uses Recipal or might use Recipal. That's always a fun game to play. Yeah, and you can definitely see it from like your Whole Foods to like local farmers market kind of thing, which is always really cool.
Do you know that, like, do you get a feed of still when like new signups come in and you see companies and you're like, oh, like I didn't know they were using us now, like that's cool?
Yeah, I get I used to go through early on and email every single new user as like crazy, like startup founder, like trying to understand why they were coming and like get the messaging right. And I think this is kind of goes whether you're like a software business or any other food business, talk to your customers, but I'd get that like daily feed of new, just like free trial users. And I would like research like whatever tools there were in like Gmail, where you'd look up like by email, would show their like Twitter profile and their Facebook account or whatever, like painstakingly research each one and like email and send like a personal note. and just say hi, honestly. Just if they have any questions, like check in, and just kind of do a little research and get to know them and get to know like our customer. Can't say that I do that anymore, but we definitely kind of try to automate the checking in and making ourselves available. Yeah, it's really cool just to see, you know, that you're affecting like actual businesses and lives, and hopefully making people's lives a little bit easier day to day, and kind of letting them grow to the next step with their business.
So you went from this kind of career of management consulting
Right.
to kind of jumping into the startup life, and now Recipal is kind of running. Like, did you expect, you know, you've been doing this for, I think you said 7 years now or so. Like, did you expect the company to like run for this long?
I expected to run for this long. I didn't expect me to be running it for this long in like a full-time capacity. I don't know if it's the like inherent, like, I'd say I'm like an optimist in life in general. But I don't necessarily set or have like super high expectations. I'm more like a under promise, over deliver kind of person. But when this was first like a side project for me, like I could see this making like, you know, a couple $1,000 a year, and it's like beer money, or like you could use that towards vacation. That was kind of how I imagined it. And then I have like whatever normal job and go on with my life. This would be like a little thing on the side. And pretty quickly it turned into like a full-time gig for me. And yeah, I haven't done anything for 7 years. My management consulting job, I was there for, it's like 3.5, 4 years. And then until I started doing Recipal, I kind of was figuring things out with other startups or kind of consulting gigs. But yeah, definitely had no intention of this being like a full-time, long-term thing for me. But yeah, people really just appreciated it and got that feedback early, and have kept trying to just iterate on the product and just try to make it a little better every day, or every week, every month.
I love that. I mean, it kind of talks to, there seems to be two prevailing philosophies of kind of growing businesses these days, either like quick scaling, and like you take on lots of like venture capital money, you try to grow really fast and have some type of like large exit. And then there's the other side of like, hey, let me just like retain 100% ownership or most ownership and just kind of grow it slowly and organically. Where do you fit on that spectrum in your philosophy?
I mean, yeah, we don't have any outside money, and it's definitely been like a kind of organic, linear growth. There's no like hockey stick kind of thing, and I never planned for that. But yeah, it definitely gives Recipal and me the freedom to kind of pick and choose, like over time, what to focus on. Sometimes be more like family focused. Like I took like the month after my daughter was born, maybe work for like 30 minutes a day, just like check email and make sure there's like nothing broken. Other times I'll be like more focused with work, or who knows what else will come up in the future. But definitely with COVID, and our daughter was home from daycare, and that was definitely pretty challenging to get much work done. Just because there's more to do during the day, and I don't know, when your kid's home, you want to hang out with them. You don't want to be sitting on the computer when you like hear them playing downstairs, kind of thing. But yeah, definitely allowed that flexibility, and just kind of take it in stride and say, all right, like not going to get too much work done or get too much forward momentum these next couple of months, but there are more important things. And yeah, just having a small, young, growing family, it's been pretty amazing running your own business that allows that flexibility. I've been very, very grateful for that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, I wrote an article when my daughter was first born, just in terms of how I shifted my priorities as well. And, you know, encourage everyone to do that as well in terms of determining like and writing out like, here are the things that are like most important to me, and
Right.
then building your to-do list and your priorities like based on that. It helps you like to stay balanced and aligned for how you want to live your life.
Yeah, I think you're reading through your articles, you're way better than I am at kind of, I think I have them in my head, but I don't write them down and publish them publicly. Um, but yeah, that was like a refreshing and nice to see a kind of a very like structured process for them kind of evaluating and reevaluating.
So I'm glad it comes off as structure, because one of my challenges is holding myself accountable. So I publish it to hold myself accountable,
Yeah, yeah,
because otherwise like I
totally.
drift away from it. And
Yeah.
so I can like go back and reach out to it, which is always, good for me to kind of reset that. In terms of like people reaching out to you from Recipal, like what are the kinds of questions people are asking? Like what are the challenges that you get to see people going through with their businesses just through your platform?
Yeah, we obviously deal with a lot of people kind of starting their businesses, or just trying to get into or getting into retail. Um, so it's a lot of um, just questions about the regulations of like labeling. Obviously, questions just about Recipal. Um, the big thing people are worried about or have questions on, in regards to Recipal, is one, privacy. People want to make sure that their stuff is going to be safe on Recipal. I have like a real answer for that, and kind of like a sarcastic like entrepreneur answer for that as well. And the real answer is yes, we take that stuff very seriously, and everything's private to your account. Um, and we just don't share or sell that information. It has no value to us, as far as that's concerned. And the kind of sarcastic answer is that like grandma's recipe isn't worth anything. Like you can go
Yeah.
online and get Bobby Flay's like most famous recipes, and they're free for everybody. And everyone knows who Bobby Flay is, and most likely no one knows who you are. And if you try to like go on the street and sell your recipe, you wouldn't get anything for it. But obviously people value that stuff, and it's important. Um, and when you're starting out, that's kind of the one thing you have, before you like start a business. But as you grow it and have customers and distributors and kind of business partners you work with, like that's all the stuff that is really valuable in starting a business. It's like the processes you put in place, and production, and the employees, and training, and all those business relationships, and kind of branding. At the end of the day, like the recipe is not all that important. It is to start. It's kind of like one of those first things, but as you build your business, that like falls lower and lower and lower down the totem pole.
Yeah, it's so true. And I always tell people that if you create a nutrition label, an ingredient label, and put your product out in the market, like people can already guess your recipe because right there. And then
Exactly.
based on law, you have to list it in the order from like most ingredient to least. So
Right.
you don't know if it's like a teaspoon or half a teaspoon, but you can see the proportions relatively.
Yeah, there's like some basic linear algebra you can do given the nutrition and the ingredients, and get pretty close. And I think that's a functionality in some of the nutrition software, and something I obviously have on our list of functionality, not to like figure out other people's, but if you have like a target nutrition and like set of ingredients, or if you want to like adjust things slightly, to kind of hit certain parameters, kind of same idea there, to have that as like a little functionality on top of just putting in your basic recipe.
Yeah, I really like that, like a way to optimize your recipe a little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
talk about that going on those lines. Like, what are some of the like features that the newest features that you've added, and any other like cool ones that you're able to share that you're willing to like that you're thinking about doing?
What are we working on? Yeah, there's a lot of those that are kind of hopeful we'll get to soon. We're doing a whole like redesign right now that's pretty close to being done. Because the rest of how I did like most of the design, kind of just did the best that I could as like a totally non-designer. I feel like I have an eye for design, but like I don't live in Illustrator or Photoshop or any of those tools. So we'll like rebrand, redesign. That doesn't really change the functionality and output, but it'll just be like nicer. Hopefully people will be more attracted to it. As kind of like styles change after 10 years. Definitely happens. Other big project we have that's pretty much done, but we have to kind of get back to it and wrap it up, is the ability to just create like I guess that'll be like a separate project, but once you have your nutrition label, to be able to like adjust the label directly. So rather than it being based on the recipe strictly and like calculating the nutrition, you'll have your final nutrition label and you'll be able to go into like edit mode, and as opposed to like editing your recipe, just editing the label. So like the classic example is like vitamin A and C, they like deteriorate and degrade with like exposure to heat or oxygen. So you might have like the calculated version of that, but when you go through the production process, those will actually get scaled down. So you might want to like adjust those manually from to like 50% of what they would be otherwise. So being able to just edit your label in line will be just kind of nice, and that'll segue into letting people just create a label, like not based on a recipe. So it's better to like look at a label and it'll start out with all zeros, and you can just kind of type in like in the label view rather than kind of like a form view, and kind of get started even quicker. Pretty excited for those two.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that would be insanely valuable for brands. So that's really cool. Awesome. Well, Love, anything else that you'd like to share? Any closing thoughts for food brands?
I mean, we're just very kind of fortunate and appreciative of kind of loyal and supportive customers. We what makes my day is getting emails from people that are like, oh, I was like searching all week for something to do this, and I was so worried about it, and this just took like a whole like weight off my shoulders. Usually those are people that don't pay us a dime. There's like free trial people, and that's fantastic. But those little notes like make our day and keep us going. You're looking at like software and code all day. It's not always the most uplifting thing, depending on your personality. Yeah, just the communities like yours. You're saying you see people kind of mentioning Recipal all the time. Like, that's awesome. We're very appreciative of that, and hope we can kind of continue providing the service to the food community and grow with you guys.
That's amazing, Love. Well, Love Berlin with Recipal, thanks so much for being on today.
Thank you, Jordan.